Hey there. Nice to finally see you. Welcome to Ready Said Podcast number 50. Before we really get into everything, I've been working on the audio, haven't had too much luck, so I apologize for the horrible audio, but this is kind of what we're going to have to work with right now. Again, I'm so sorry. It sounds like I'm in a large arena all by myself. But anyway, it's now that we got that out of the way, one more thing to talk about. Yeah, we haven't been on the air in a while. A lot of that is because just a lot going on, not in my life, but just in general, and it's very overwhelming and didn't really want to get into much. Back in May and through those first 4 months of the year, I was kind of really more focused on discovering my inter-libertarian, if you will. But yeah, I'm still all for that pro-liberty stuff. But I don't know. Okay, so this reminds me of a story I've just recently been following over the last 4 or 5 months, and it was about a guy who worked overtime. He didn't get paid overtime by his boss. This was in some garage, and he filed a complaint. The state went to this employer about this, and his response was to pay this guy in oily pennies. This was kind of went viral at the time, and then as in the last few weeks, apparently this guy who delivered the oily pennies is now under investigation. So this is kind of going back to what I was saying about libertarianism. This is why, the ANCAPs, they're kind of wrong, because this is what you're going to get if there aren't any laws. I mean, we're getting this with laws. You know what I mean? And this guy's still saying, like, I shouldn't have to pay overtime. So going the route of, no government, every man for himself, the market will fix itself. Yeah, it will, but there'll be a lot of collateral damage in between that. And, we don't want that. We don't want people to have to deal with unnecessary drama because someone wants to be irresponsible. But anyway, let's get back to the main story here, or at least me going on about nothing. At the time, you had Joe Biden was in office for about 130 days at the time. You had the insurrection, which ended up not really being an insurrection, but we can get into that in later episodes. By May, there really wasn't much going on. I mean, I had kind of moved out of the stock market into crypto, and again, we can get into that in later podcast episodes as well. But while all this was going on, there was one thing that always kept kind of coming up that I would see, and that was, all the talk about the election and how some people felt the election wasn't on the up and up. There's some people that use the F word, fraud, which me personally, did fraud take place? Maybe, maybe not. There's two camps when it comes to this. Nothing to see here, folks. And there's some people that say, well, there is, something to look at. Well, there's really three camps. And the other camp is like, Donald Trump's still the president. And, whoops, that's wrong. Much love to him, but that's not how it came. That's not what the turnout was. And again, my whole original thought on the election was, I kind of look at it this way. If you're playing a football game and then in the third quarter, the other team says, you know what, we're not going to enforce pass interference laws anymore. And we're actually going to let the people in the stands, write in letters to talk about what we want to do for next year's competition committee. I mean, it made no sense. I mean, that metaphor really didn't make much sense either. But you get what I'm saying. You can't change the rules in the middle of the game, and then expect people to be like, well, that was completely fair. That's not how it works. So I kind of wanted to get into this a little bit, and that's kind of what we're going to discuss today. But before we get into all that, I just want to say welcome again to Ready Said Podcast number 50. I feel like this is a pretty big milestone for us. The audio podcast, I haven't figured out how I'm going to do that version of it yet, but you'll be able to find it on Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and CastBox, and all the others listed above. And then the video format will be here on YouTube and soon to be on Rumble. All right, so let's get into this really quickly here. So like I said, I wanted to kind of break down what the election was like, and one of the more important things I wanted to kind of go over was, what I was just kind of saying earlier is you have those three camps, nothing to see here, there's a little fuckery, and Donald Trump's the president of the United States still. So what I wanted to do was let's kind of look into the fuckery part of this, and that brings me to Green Bay, Wisconsin, and we have this article here done by Real Clear Politics, Matt Batzel. This is from late May, actually. So I stumbled upon this article and I saved it. And I'm so glad I did. Because when I read it, I was like, this is kind of a better way of the point I always try to articulate when I talk to people about this. And that is that it's not that voter fraud took place or that it didn't take place, but it's that there's a lot of things going on that just didn't seem on the up and up. And this Green Bay situation I'm going to use this to prove my overall point here. So the first part of this situation starts with the Green Bay mayor, Eric Jenrich. And this gentleman was a progressive Democrat who was a Hillary Clinton supporter. And then, he was a Bernie Sanders supporter. After Bernie gets steamrolled by the DNC, he becomes a Hillary Clinton delegate and supporter, I assume. So, the guy's loyal is what that says. Again, nothing to worry. That's not a red flag at all. If you have a girlfriend who just starts banging your best friend right after you or while you're dating her, that's a red flag. So what this guy does is, this guy, when he was elected, was basically showed that he was pretty inept from the get-go. In the 2020 primaries, what this guy ended up doing was, instead of letting the National Guard come in and, help with all the long lines in these primaries, he told them stay away and let these long lines continue. And I think Green Bay was one of the last polls to close in the state of Wisconsin during the primaries. Another thing that kind of happened that really makes you scratch your head at what this guy was doing, and it's kind of right down here, is the former city clerk, Chris Teskey, I think is what that says, blew the whistle on the mayor because what he basically did was the city clerk in Green Bay oversees the elections, and the mayor came in and said, sorry, I'm going to take that from you. Essentially, basically like a general manager of a restaurant going to the bar manager and be like, yo, I'm going to do the schedule and the inventory back here. You just sweep it up and make it look nice. You probably wouldn't last long at that job either. And there's a few other things in here just about how inept he was and stuff like that. But essentially, that was like the big thing. Again, I'm not trying to say voter fraud happened, but are you trying to say that this is 100% legit also? I don't know. So the next part we have here is what this guy did. Oh, let me get rid of his photo here. Is when all this fuckery was taking place, there was 5 Green Bay citizens who filed a complaint against this Jenrich political operation. So the city attorney, what she does is decides to release this memorandum that basically is just like, nothing to see here, folks, nothing to see here. When in fact, it was quite the opposite. There was a lot to see here. And that's what this investigation over my right shoulder, your left shoulder, whichever, talks about. And it was basically saying that even though there is nothing to see here, there's plenty to see here. And one of the things to see here is there was an ad hoc committee created in front of the mayor's office to oversee these elections. And here's a little interesting. We're going to talk about 3 people on this ad hoc committee, but there's a little bonus, well, really 4 or 5, but there's 3 people I want to mainly spotlight, and then 2 that are kind of on the peripherals. But the one of this first 2 is this lady, Celestine Jeffries, which is down here towards the bottom of this article. And it talks about how she was the mayor's chief of staff. And then once the city clerk resigned, she became the new city clerk. So now you have someone who's in the mayor's office taking over the city clerk's job, while one of the main responsibilities of 2020 is to oversee the election. Now that's in the mayor's office, and now the mayor has his person in the city clerk's office. So again, let's talk about who is on this ad hoc committee. And the first person we find is, I always do this, it's the wrong one. We want that. Is Susan K. Smith, right there on above line 1. She is the Deputy Attorney General of California, and she's also Kamala Harris's personal attorney. So this is a filing they made on November 13th, 2013, publicly declaring that Susan K. Smith is Kamala Harris's lawyer. So let's talk about why that's kind of important. I mean, there could be a bazillion reasons why that lady is there, but this is what it's concerning. For one, she's someone directly connected to the person that's running for vice president, or ends up running for vice president. Either way, she's in the White House, or second in command to the White House. Thirdly, you have a lady who doesn't work or live in Green Bay and is brought into this election. Now, again, why is this important? You got to remember, Trump, I think, won Wisconsin by 10,000 votes. I forgot what Biden won it by, but it wasn't by much more, okay? So this is a bigger look at what we were just kind of looking at in the other view there. So we have Susan K. Smith, who is the Deputy Attorney General for California. At least she used to be. So that's one person on this ad hoc committee. Let's talk about the next. And that is going to be this gentleman, Ahmaud Arbery. I always say his name wrong. Ahmad Riviera Wagner. And that's just this gentleman all the way here on the right. He's pictured here with Elizabeth Warren and Ed Markey. He actually used to be a staffer for Ed Markey. In 2017, he ran for, in 2017 is when he worked for Ed Markey. He also was a speaker at many Antifa rallies, and he helped organize many Resist Trump rallies back in that time. So he's not trying to say he's, that this is bad, but he's not really a moderate either. This gentleman, like I said, he ran for Massachusetts state senator, and one of the interesting things about him, let's get over a closer look at that, is that this guy, one of the main things he ran on was resisting the Trump administration. I mean, he had a few other pillars, but clearly that wasn't enough for him to get elected, so that didn't work out too well. So again, what outside of the committee, what other role did this guy play in? Hold on, that's not good. We got to do this. That's better. There we go. I love the flag, but you can't upstage. There we go. Okay. Okay. We're just gonna do this. Hopefully it stays. All right. Let's just do that. We'll deal with this later. So one of the other things about this Riviera guy is that he was put in charge of central count, and this guy would coordinate the staffing. He would manage and train. He was basically running the operation that was counting the absentee ballots during the 2020 presidential election. That's a little problematic. And want to know what else is a little bit problematic is after he delivered, well, he didn't personally deliver the state, but he helped, count all those votes to make sure Joe Biden won. Well, you know what I mean. The absentee ballots fell in Joe Biden's favor. So that's why I say that, regardless of the outcome of the election. So what did this gentleman get for, being such a great team player? Well, he gets promoted to the mayor's chief of staff because, as we know, the mayor had an opening there as he sent his former chief of staff to run the city clerk's office. So again, no fuckery, nothing to see here. This is all on the up and up, right? What else do we got here? So we're going to move on to our next person here. And that is going to be this gentleman, Michael Spitzer Rubenstein. Let me make sure I have my notes correct here. So this gentleman used to be a former Bill de Blasio supporter. He never worked for Bill de Blasio, but he was a big supporter, which is an even giant red flag. That's like a girl asking you to marry her on the first date. It's not, but you see what I'm saying. It's not anyone who supports this guy. I don't really know if you could trust their politics. He also used to be an Alan Grayson staffer, so this guy is embedded into the Democrat political operation machine. And he also worked for a New York he was a spokesperson for a New York City council member who was listed as a fierce liberal. But I mean, on the New York City Council, that's just like saying it's sunny in Florida. And this guy, this is an interesting player because again, like Susan K. Smith, the gentleman before, Ahmad Wagner, whatever his name is, were all brought in from outside of the state. One from California, one from Massachusetts. This gentleman happens to be from New York. What do you know? A lot of liberal states here. bringing in people from the outside. So this guy actually was a state leader for the National Vote at Home Institute, and that's exactly what it sounds like. They want people to vote at home and send in their absentee ballots. So this guy was imported from New York, brought into Green Bay, Wisconsin, to oversee the absentee ballot counting room that this gentleman was counting. Okay, so the gentleman above, Michael Spitzer, he's essentially like the area manager, and Ahmad Arbery Wagner was like a general manager of a restaurant. So Ahmad Arbery Wagner is running the Green Bay absentee ballot counting room, and the guy Michael Spitzer, the Bill de Blasio fan, he basically is like I said, the area manager. He's the guy that goes around and counts or is overseeing these 5 counting rooms, and it's the top 5 cities in Wisconsin: Milwaukee, Green Bay. I'm assuming Madison, and I don't know what the other 2 were. So he was the guy in charge of making sure all of those were running smoothly and counting up their absentee ballots. So essentially, Jenrich's chief of staff, the newer guy, Ahmad Wagner Aubrey, was, however you say his name, was reporting to this Michael Spitzer guy. Now, that last part I alluded to, the 6th person involved, well, kind of 6th person, would be known as Zuckerbucks. And what that was a lot of outside money coming into this Green Bay election. So you have 3 or 4 people who don't live or work in Green Bay coming into Green Bay to oversee absentee ballots and the election there. And then money from the outside, from California, mind you, is coming into the state to basically fund this operation that is going on. And there's another screen we have here. Let's go to that really quickly. Oops, yeah, there we go. Is what there, I should... M.D. Kittle wrote this special investigation. I think it was from one of the local news outlets there in Green Bay. And it was kind of looking into more of what these Zuckerbucks were, as they're kind of called, and how they infiltrated the November presidential elections, 5 largest cities. And kind of what you have here is it talks about this Michael Spitzer Rubenstein guy and how he was basically a de facto elections administrator and had access to Green Bay's absentee ballots the days before the election. So this guy had access to Green Bay's absentee ballots. The mayor's own person was overseeing the ballots in Green Bay. And not only that, this Michael Spitzer Rubenstein was also overseeing 4 other cities in Green Bay. On top of that, this guy goes to the Green Bay's clerk, which, they make, I don't know if that was before the resignation or if this was the clerk when the mayor appointed them, but he asked if his team members could correct or cure absentee ballots like they did in Milwaukee. And why this would be extremely worrisome is if this clerk was the mayor's person, clearly they said yes. So there you have it. That's kind of, what we got going on here is little fuckery. And again, not saying, Trump's president. I'm not saying Joe Biden isn't president. I'm just saying these are the things people were trying to point to, in the late fall or early winter last year. You can't say that what happened in 2020, after everything I just laid out, is legit. Again, and you can't say it the other way. But to say that this is a 100% clean and fair election is clearly bullshit. And I think I did a good job laying that out today. Okay, well, that is going to do it for us today. Again, I'm so sorry for the ridiculous audio that we're getting, having a little issue hooking everything up and getting a clear sound. Might have to upgrade the equipment. We're in video format now, folks. This is the big leagues. Not really, but, it's better than staring at, just a few mountains and words on a screen, and you can actually see me in my animated, my animated animations. Okay. Well, that's going to do it for us today. Thanks again for tuning in and watching. This is our 50th episode. It's a pretty big milestone. Again, I have to figure out how to do the audio side of this. I haven't really gotten that far, but definitely it's going to be on YouTube. We're going to definitely be on Rumble. Thanks for tuning in. I should have this up on Saturday, and we'll try to get to that Wednesday, Saturday routine. So please give us a like and a follow. Please comment. If you want to, push back on anything I said, just leave a comment below. And let's kind of mess with everyone. If you're here at the end of the video, why don't you write down moo cow and screw with everyone to see if they watched the end of the video as well. All right. Take care, everyone. We'll see you next week.